Hi, very good morning. सभी को नमस्कार. A warm welcome to the 20th World Education Summit School Education on the day 2nd, 8th September. And on this day, we are starting over with first panel discussion on the most vital topic, that is National Education Policy 2020. The topic is implementation of national education policy in the education sector. In this topic, we are going to discuss the approach, opportunities, and challenges in implementation of national education policy. To discuss and deliberate on this particular topic, I would like to invite the speakers of the session. First of all, I would like to invite Ms. Punam Singhal, Principal, the Paras World School, Gurugram. Welcome, Punam ma'am. Thank you very much for joining at World Education Summit and giving your precious time to us. Our second speaker of the session is Mr. Dan Curry, Director and Principal, Vega Schools, Gurugram. Welcome, Dan. Welcome to the World Education Summit. Thank you for giving your precious time to us. I would like to welcome Ms. Seema Sapru. Actually, Seema Sapru is not able to join just because of health issue. So I would like to welcome Ms. Joyita Chatterjee, Principal, Chitrakoota School, Bengaluru. Welcome, Jyoti ma'am. Thank you very much for giving your precious time to us. I would like to welcome Divjot Kaur, Principal, GD Goenka Public School, Jhajjar. Welcome, Divjot ma'am. Welcome for our World Education Summit, and thank you for giving your precious time to us and enlightening us. And I would like to welcome the speaker and moderator of the session, Dr. Sebastian PG, Principal, Christ Academy, CBSE School, Bengaluru. Welcome, Dr. Sebastian, and thank you for accepting our invitation as a moderator for this session. So I would like to request all the audience, if you have any question, please put your question in the Q&A section so that we can take it live. So not taking much time, I will hand over the session to Dr. Sebastian. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning, eminent members of the panel or the panelists, and also all the participants of this great event of the World Education Summit 2021, which is a very innovative and very encouraging global event on innovation in education, which enables us to give a different paradigm shift from rote learning to the remote learning these days, and also smart learning. We must also acknowledge the efforts of the Ministry of Education, the human resource, focusing more on the educational sector, how education can be revived according to the changing needs of the society and for the new generation. In this respect, I would like to contemplate on the first educational policy, national education policy, that was constituted in the year 1968. That was given the thrust importance to compulsory education for all. Later, the second national education policy was envisaged by the government of India in 1986, and the main thrust or the focus was laid on equal opportunity for all. And after almost 35 years, now we are getting the new education policy of 2020, which is focusing on customized education. By customized education, it is foreseeing 100% gross enrollment ratio. That is to say, all school-going children, those who are in that age, they should be seen in the schools. That is how, the number of children under the age group of school-going age, when compared with the number of enrolled student community in the schools, the government wants to see 100% students get education. And it also focuses on augmenting individual capacity, expanding giving opportunity for all, depending on their skills, their traits to achieve excellence in the field of their choice. Their skills can be boosted. Skill-based learning is given importance, and also better employability will be ensured by this, since the skill-based learning arena is open to all the children. It also empowers the children to improve their critical thinking, the analytical thinking, the intellectual intelligence, then their communication skills, their analytical learning power. All these areas are touched upon, focused by in the new education policy. The government also wants to see that there is a national talent and resource pool is set up for the nation. Overall, we can say it will be a student-friendly curriculum. There will not be any harder, division of, say, mathematics is compulsory, social studies is compulsory, English is compulsory, nothing like that. According to the taste of the students, they can choose. Then, the skill, as I mentioned, the critical thinking and creativity, CCT, is focused mainly by the education policy, the competency of the students. Also, learning should be an enjoyable experience for them, and that which can be related to their life, experiential learning. Why should they learn a particular concept? How it can be related to their daily life? Then, usually the students are afraid of assessments or examinations, but here we say anonymized assessments. The students need not mention their names, or who is writing the exam, or who is valuing it. Nothing is important here. The concept, the answer, whether it is correct, the applied knowledge, if it is correct, then we can say that education is more meaningful. And also the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, that the new division, every year there is no examination. Sorry, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, KG section and first and second 5 years. So at the end of the second year, in the grade 2, there will be an evaluation. Then 3, 4, 5, in grade 5 there may be an examination or evaluation. 6, 7, 8. In 8 there may be a testing. Then 9, 10, 11, 12. So 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. This pattern is more appropriate according to the educationists. Then we also have a teacher education, 4-year integrated education, Bachelor of Education, at multidisciplinary institutions, boosting the skills of the teachers. Then also the teaching learning pattern, the 5E instruction model is envisaged in the new education policy. We can say, that the first E stands for engaging the students in the teaching learning process, exploring the avenues for them through participating in the experiments, in the projects, all that. Then conceptualization, explaining the concept. The teacher, after becoming a facilitator, it will become a pleasure for them. Rather, it is not a pressure for them. And the explanation of the concept comes. Then extending their knowledge horizon, that also is opened up. Then comes the evaluation. So with all these highlights of the NEP. I would also request the earnest participation of the other members of the panel. May I request Ms. Punam Singhal to contribute her thoughts, throw lights on, focusing on quality education for all. Over to Madam Punam, Madam, please.
Thank, thank you so much, Dr. Sebastian, and a warm welcome and a good morning to all my fellow panelists. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible well? All right. So I think Dr. Sebastian has set the mood for this discussion this morning. And what I would like to be talking about is how is NEP laying stress on quality education? NEP talks about fulfilling human potential, developing an equitable and just society, promoting national development, providing universal accessibility to quality education so that the economic growth, social justice and equality, scientific advancement, national integration, cultural preservation for India continues. By the end of the next decade, India is going to be having the highest youth population. And I think it was the right time for the government to think about introducing a education policy which will focus on the children's total holistic growth, on the total growth, rather than the way it was being conducted earlier. I think the 2 years of our pandemic, or rather 18 months of the pandemic, has actually given us an insight that education is possible where children take leadership or take the responsibility for their own learning. The employment dynamics are going to change drastically with technology coming in, with artificial intelligence coming in. So education and subjects cannot be taught in silo. It has to be multidisciplinary, it has to be integrated, there has to be a lot of development on skills. NEP for the first time is talking now that the education should be more on content. It should not be content driven, but concept driven, where there is a lot of emphasis laying on conceptual learning. And we're very happy that the assessment pattern has undergone a change, where today the government is talking, the CBSE is talking about bringing in the MCQs into the grade 10 and grade 9 examinations, as well as for grade 12, where children will have to analyze, will have to think deeper and give the right answer. It's not easy, when you sit for a multiple choice question paper, to be able to choose the right answer depends on how the child has been able to analyze and critically break down what he has learned. Similarly, when they're talking about case studies, where a case study is given and the child is talking about how they are going to implement that in their day-to-day life, is what education actually means. When we are talking about, the soft skills have to be developed, when we're talking about social emotional learning, NEP has very well included that into the curriculum, where collaboration, leadership, empathy, resistance, resilience, all these have been taken into consideration so that children now start working in collaboration, children start working as a team. Assessment will be not only for learning or as in terms of a summative assessment, but also in terms of as learning and off learning. And when we are talking about as learning, it is going to be project based. And I have seen that for myself, that when you give children projects and you ask them to self-evaluate and self-assess themselves, learning is far, far deeper. And that is what the NEP is laying stress on. Uh, Also, NEP is taking into cognizance the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN has formulated. So, our children need to be sensitized on climatic change, on gender equality, on good health and well-being, and that is why programs like Fit India has been made mandatory by the government, where for a particular month, every child along with the family gets involved in making sure that good health and fitness is of prime importance. So, and climatic change, we are going through, especially in Gurgaon or in North India, we experience the effect of what humans are doing to the environment, and how each one of us is suffering, and the new kind of problems and the new kind of diseases that are cropping up courtesy that. So, if we are able to incorporate all of this, which NEP is laying stress on, and making sure that we raise children who have access to good quality education, which is not content driven, which is concept driven, where a lot of emphasis is given not only to science or humanities, but equal importance given to post-scholastic. So I think making it interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary is the way forward. And I am happy to say that when we look at the NEP document, it is talking about all of that. And I think one particular thing that NEP is strongly provocating or strongly talking about is the CPD, that is the Continuous Development Program, that has to be initiated, because not just like every student is on a different page, every student understands and grows differentially. Teachers also are on a different learning path. And by generating the Diksha app and various other formats for continuous professional development, I'm sure once the teacher is trained to impart the kind of knowledge, or to make sure that that kind of knowledge is being delivered, the education system in our country will definitely take into consideration and make it more employment friendly, and make a society and make a government that we are going to be proud of. And as I said in the beginning, that we are going to have the largest number of youth population in course of time. So this is the need of the hour. This is the time when we need to focus on these aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As when ma'am rightly pointed out, the NEP, it is, we are pretty sure that it is going to enhance the quality of education for all the students. Coming to the, another attraction of the new education policy, that, as I mentioned in the beginning, it is going to be, child friendly, learner friendly, and learner centric. So, may I call upon Joyita Chatterjee ma'am to throw light on how the new education policy is making learning easy and learner centric. Over to you, madam. Kindly unmute, madam.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to all my fellow panelists. Thank you. In this whole discussion, two words are very, very catchy. That is making it learner centric and making the learning easy. Both the things are very important for us to understand the depth of these two words, actually speaking. So, whenever a policy is laid out by the government or by the authority, we need to understand that there was a gap, there were some gaps to fulfill that the new policy comes up. So we can understand that the quality, the affordability, and the accessibility, those three were the major gaps which we have seen in our, such a big career, a long career of as an educationist. So these two words of learner centric and easy learning are very much connected to this quality of learning, as Punam ma'am also mentioned that. So I can understand that NEP is somehow trying to shift our whole thought process of theory-based learning to application-based learning. So how do we think about that? It is actually trying to infuse all the subjects in a manner that the dependency on a single teacher, on the subject teacher, will be less, and the paradigm shift of teaching learning will happen from teacher to the student. The student will be learning by themselves. So when a child or a student can learn, we have seen in our career that when a student is happy, the student learns in the best possible way. So when a person will be happy, when there won't be any fear, any stress. So NEP 2020 is focusing majorly on stress-free learning. How they have done that? They have done that through the need-based learning, focusing on the need-based learning. Each age group will be learning according to their own need, according to their age. And the biggest step, what I feel in NEP, what they have taken, that 0 to 6 years to be included in the main learning stream. As we all know that cognitive learning is the best possible at its peak at 3 to 6 years. So if a child is learning through play method, through materials, through hand and senses, he is learning the basic of these the concepts. And the basic, if it is strong, then the concern what we had, that children are in 5th standard, children are in 4th standard, they cannot read, they cannot count, these things won't happen. They will be having maybe the counters at 4 years of age or 5 years of age, and we understand that these are the units. Otherwise, 1 to 10, they used to say like a poem that they won't do. And when they are reading something, they are not merely reading, it is happening a total reading, where they are understanding the meaning of it. By reading it and by talking and by interacting with others, through that they are understanding the grammar of the reading also, learning also. So that's a huge need-based learning of early childhood care and learning, what I feel will become a miraculous state in NEP 2020. Next, if we come to middle school, where all these children are highly inquisitive. Whatever you give them, they will open up, they will try to manipulate it, whatever you say. So we call it, manipulating with the material. So at this stage, we are giving vocational training, so that the children will learn. They are very much interested in what is happening in carpentry, in ICT, in any way. You just, in 1.5 years, we have understood. Children have taught us how to take away the online classes, how to make projects possible. So they are the teachers. At this age, we see high enthusiasm and the peer learning, a lot of group discussions. They are excited to take up leadership qualities. So exactly here we are giving those things so that a learner is happy and go into deep learning, go into deep understanding. It's not like superficial content. Then I'm coming to high school. What is happening in high school? When I'm hungry, my aim is to fulfill my hunger through food. But what kind of food I want to take, which I like, which I can choose. So it's like a buffet dinner or buffet lunch. So children are choosing their own subject. So mathematics, a mathematical minded child, many times we have seen that he is inclined to music, dance, or maybe psychology. And here there is a choice of that particular child to choose from that. So there is no barrier between your co-curricular activities or extracurricular activities and your core learning subjects. So that's the best thing can happen to that age, when they are actually the leaders of youth and they're rebellion, but they really know what they're choosing for. It gives them a lot of self-esteem. I have done it. So if the mistakes also happen, they know that they are going to correct it. We are nowhere there. We're just facilitated and we are encouraging them for this kind of learning. Every stage of these learnings, we see that the project-based learning, the multidisciplinary learning, the art integrated learning are taking the major seat here. How we understand that these are very much interesting for the children. In a conventional mindset also, we have seen that art and craft classes or ICT classes or PE classes are mostly enjoyed by our children. They just wait for that to vent out. They feel that that is the stress buster. Now we have been bringing that through their assessments. They are not tense about one exam. Throughout the year, they are getting access through the projects what they want to do. Each child is having a different learning practice, learning style. Some are kinesthetic learner, some are visual learner, some are auditory learner. So when my lesson plan as a teacher, I am having an innovative lesson plan where I am giving the opportunity of all these learners to do something. My children are always engaged, effectively engaged, and that is what is making this child or this student happy. That is what is making this learning easy. So I really feel that the NEP 2020 is having a huge aspect of having happy, joyful learners in our classrooms, which will bring a different change, and that will make them a global citizen also. They would try to come out from the textbook. They would like to know more what is happening, because it is their subject they are learning. And another thing what will happen for our junior learners, for our early school comers, that we are bringing a lot of importance on mother tongue. So most of the time, children who enter the school, they have a fear that they don't understand the instruction language, the language of instruction. The books are all in foreign language or the language what they are not used to. But now our language is our all the children from every nook and corner of the country can have the opportunity to understand the instruction well, understand the textbook well. They will be having a love for the subject what they are learning. So I am very, very, really I'm excited to welcome NEP 2020 and to see a great change in our education system. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyita ma'am. As you said, the opportunity for the students to choose, from the multidisciplinary, areas, it is becoming more child-friendly, the education is as per the new education policy. There is another area which is specified in the NEP is school complexes for effective administration and management of schools, and for better efficiency and better learning. How it is possible, the implementation plan of national education policy throughout the country. So we got the villages, the townships, the corporations, cosmopolitan cities, metro cities. How it is going to be effective, that is yet another apprehension of the educationists. May I kindly call upon Dan Kerry sir's thoughts on implementation plan of national education policy throughout the country. Over to you, Dan sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone, and panelists. This is an important topic, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to join you today in speaking about this. It is very important as we look at the leadership of our schools and how this is going to roll down nationwide. How do we take this philosophical approach, this paradigm shift in national education policy, and how do we make it practical? What does that look like once it's on the ground? So obviously there are components that have been touched on already that have to do with professional development. So we need to start, it's a system overhaul with, our training, our Bachelor of Ed degrees, our university training, where we have teachers coming out understanding not only the approach of the national education policy, but also being trained in some of the instructional practices that go along with that. And we've heard about some of the previous two panels have talked about some of these interdisciplinary approaches, this collaboration, and that has to be happening all through the training in our university system. The other part is developing structures that create learning opportunities and other opportunities for our school leaders. We're doing here to talk about how do we make this happen? How do we see this shift on the ground across the country, in big cities and in small villages, and it is creating those networks of professional networks, professional learning communities among our leaders, among our academic leaders, making sure that our school leaders are in fact academic leaders, that they have the academic training as well as the leadership training to see these things through. There's lots of research, obviously, all the time about educational practices, about school design, and we as leaders need to be up to date on What's the latest in research on pedagogy, on instructional strategies, on thinking about taxonomies? And it's nice to see in the National Education Policy, they're really talking about cognitive domains. And do we understand that? And how do we provide for that? The other is, how do we increase the amount of vocational kind of education in schools that are traditionally designed to be focused on some of the core math and science, English, with an aim towards, as we know, a desire for everyone to grow up to be an engineer or a doctor or something like that. But that's, as a society, we need all vocations. So how do we adjust our schools to allow for that vocational education? The other piece that's important that I've seen in my time here in India is that there's also a piece of parent education. So our parents have grown up in a traditional system, and they expect, they're measuring what they're seeing in schools against their expectations, against their experience. So how do we get this NEP out, not just in our school systems, but in our communities, so that our parents, our companies around us understand what it is we're trying to achieve, why it's good, why our students will come out knowing more, being able to solve problems and think critically. So with parents understanding this new approach, we need all those pieces. We need the staff members properly trained. We need our parents to understand this is going to look different than the schools that you attended. And it's going to be a better outcome. The other is on assessment. How do we make sure that the assessments that are being developed align with this new philosophy? Because we know parents are going to be concerned about, will my child be ready? Now, we want them to be ready for life. And I think the NEP is more focused on that. Are they ready for life? Can they solve problems? Can they think critically? Can they work collaboratively? Do they have good socio-emotional skills? Can they connect with others? And also, if they have skills in the arts or in other subjects, how can we make sure that they are achieving their potential in those areas? But we can do all that. But if the assessments are only focused on memorization or rote learning of math and science and English, then there's going to be necessarily effort towards those areas. So it's a complete overhaul in the nuts and bolts of how schools operate. It's going to take a lot of time and energy and a lot of training, a lot of education for existing leaders and existing teachers who've been operating in the current environment, to our university programs who are training our new teachers to come out and understand how to implement this. And with that, how do they then have new teachers come into a school that may be traditional, and those new teachers, are they allowed to have influence in creating these new pedagogies and these new strategies? Will schools be flexible enough to allow those changes? Will they happen quickly? Will it take time? There will be resistance. We know any change meets resistance. So it's thinking about where are those touch points in the schools, in the communities, where we're going to have resistance, where we need training, where we need development. Schools need to address vocational and educational strengths in students. So that means that we're going to have to add components to our schools that include vocational training and education. And that can be anything from, hands-on shop work in schools, or internships in local companies where they're seeing and learning what's going on in different career fields. So those are, for me, those are the things I think about in terms of how do we make this happen? What's the, when the rubber hits the road, where are we going to hit those barriers? I think the philosophy, the NEP, is good. It's going in the right direction. I think we're seeing a lot of schools already heading that direction, which is good. And so the national policy is right on track. We hope to see a lot of growth out of this across the country. Of course, huge untapped resources in the people of India who I think are poised to be to come out and be world leaders in many areas beyond sciences and computer technology, but in creativity, in the arts, in many areas. So we need to provide for those opportunities in our schools and allow them to, and we've heard that from our other panelists, give them that choice, that voice and choice to say, what are your strengths? What are your interests? How can we help you achieve that? Rather than forcing everyone down the same pathway. And so schools need to change what courses they offer. Structurally, there will be changes. That means changes in curriculum design. It means changes in staffing who come in with maybe non-traditional backgrounds for teaching, but they have the background for the vocation, and they have a lot to offer to come in and be experts in those fields. So that's the redesign in the schools. How do we work and partner with our local corporations to partner and say, what are the key skills you need? What's important for you? How can we work together? Because we know that schools are not, they're not banks, and so things cost money. And so how can we leverage our relationships with others in our community to say, look, we want to provide students that can come to you and be value added day one. So what is that going to look like from your end? Those are some of the things that I think we need to start thinking about in our schools, thinking differently, kind of innovatively in how we approach our community. But definitely, again, going back to that training, how do we continually, and it's not just a one-time thing, it's going to take time and continual effort to remind people, to train them, to remind them, to keep them on track. Again, we have people, this is decades, many years of doing it in one way, and there will be resistance. So those are some of my thoughts on that particular area. Our students are going to be facing different things. So we need to prepare them for that future that we're unsure of. And so we need to train them to be problem solvers. So when they are our age and they're facing problems, they're going to do a much better job than we in solving those problems, because they'll grow up being trained to think critically and solve those problems. So I look forward to a bright future here in India with our students who are going to be adaptable and flexible and collaborative and able to react and adjust and think proactively about the challenges they'll face in the India of tomorrow. And so thank you for allowing me a moment to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Dan sir. As Dan sir has rightly said, whether east or west, north or south, the quality of education is more important. And Albert Einstein has rightly said, education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school, whether in village or in towns or cities. What remains? Education is not for life itself. Not for life alone, but education is life itself. So how do we provide better education following the national education policy is more important for us. Now, I also would like to call upon Divjot Kaur ma'am to throw lights on the impact of this new national education policy in the school education and how it is going to impact on the bringing of the learning outcomes, how it brings learning outcomes. Over to you, madam.
You're on mute, ma'am. Unmute, please.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I've been listening to my peer group, and it has been a very great learning for me too. As everybody has talked about NEP, I'll just summarize from what we just left off. So NEP has come to us after nearly 34 years. The last reform was in the year 1986. So after 34 years, we have evolved a new system, which is the need of the hour. It is a very futuristic education policy. It is going to be a driver of economic and social progress. And if we talk of the features of NEP, then it is a policy which envisions a model of holistic learning, which is integrated, engaging, and immersive. It is going to be having a scientific temperament. It is going to be evidence-based learning. very flexible, with equal promotion of art, science, physical education, extracurricular activities, performing arts, visual arts. It is going to be multidisciplinary. You are not defined by, 4 streams of commerce, medical, non-medical. It is multidisciplinary. You can choose subjects according to your choices. It is going to be cultivating life skills like cooperation, teamwork, empathy, resilience. And then the assessment pattern has to be formative, not summative. We are talking of multilingualism. We are talking of new languages. We are talking of artificial intelligence. We're talking of coding coming from class 6 onwards. So all these features of NEP, my peer group has discussed in detail. While I was listening to them and thinking about the implementation of it, a few things came to my mind. We are talking of experiential learning. Great. It is to talk about of it at school level, college level. Mr. Narayan Murthy at one point, he's the co-founder of Infosys. At one point he says that our graduates are unemployable. If we talk of the holistic way in which we are thinking of integrating industry to higher education, I hope some of it would get sorted out. Experiential learning is very great to talk of. Principally sounds very good. How it is implemented is a very big question. In schools, we have been following it since, age 3 upwards for years. But is it so everywhere? Is it happening all over India in the remote corners of the country? Are our teachers trained enough? They are subjectively qualified. They have the aptitude. Do they have the attitude to do it? Do we have our trainings in place? So a few things which come to mind while implementing it are that when we talk of experiential learning happening in some parts of the country where access to project-based learning is not there, it can even harm the interest of the child. It can be dangerous to be taking children to areas where are encroaching upon areas which are not yet safe for them. Then when we talk of holistic report cards, fine, you're going to merge the co-curricular activities with it. When you talk of objective type papers, are the question papers made on Bloom's taxonomy? Is the teacher qualified enough to make a paper which justifies, or an assessment which justifies the the qualification to be writing that paper? When we talk of the teacher education and teacher capacities to be enhanced, our GDP contribution towards education, which was 3% and now has been raised to 6%. Is it enough still for such a big country as ours, where we are not able to reach the remote corners of the country? If we talk of blended learning, if we talk of hybrid education, which has become so imperative now, there are so many parts of the country where there is no access of internet. Around 10 crore children in the country have not had education for the last 15 months. So how are we balancing it is another factor. It is very nicely said, something which is on paper needs to be implemented in a very holistic way before we think of anything else. So these are a few things which came to my mind. I was thinking of, yes, STEM education to STEAM education, multidisciplinary. But think of India, where you're talking of the regional languages coming to fore. Do we have the books ready in regional languages for even school children? Forget about the university children. Are resources sufficient enough? We do have 10 years ahead, but still a start has to be made, no? And when we talk of the regional languages, what about the mother tongue coming? if a child is studying in Assam, his father is posted in the army and is studying in Assam in the regional language, his mother tongue at home is Punjabi, what does he do? So we need, I mean, there are many pertinent things which need to be questioned before we bring it on ground and start implementing it. Because I remember when CCE came, we were in a big town. I was in Chandigarh at that time. There were teachers, there were schools in the vicinity, in the suburbs, where teachers and schools implemented it very fakely. Records were generated. Things on paper were very different from what happened in schools. So I really, really pray that it doesn't turn out to be such a shoddy affair. Because when I read that it is first phase of it is going to be implemented by end of 2022, it seemed very early. So these are a few things which I was thinking of, that it is great to talk of certain things on paper, but implementing it is a big question. Yes, mother tongue is very important. Places like Germany, where children study in their mother tongue, they soak in better till class 5. They talk of it that way. But in India, how would it be implemented in different regions still needs to be studied before you launch it. So these are a few things which came to my mind. Dr. Sebastian, you have to say something?
No, nothing, but we can continue, madam, if you wish to.
I couldn't hear you.
Madam?
I couldn't hear you.
Have you concluded, madam?
Sir, I can't understand you. There is a crackle in the voice.
I think,
okay,
ma'am,
yeah.
Saying that, have you concluded, or is there anything else that you would like to say?
Okay.
Okay.
So,
is my voice clear now?
Yes. Just a point which came to my mind when Mr. Dan was talking of parental thinking. Yes, again, it is a very important thing that in India, getting marks in exams is very important. Anybody's, employability depends on the degrees he has. Those degrees are based on the marks that you have got. Parental thinking would take years to change, because for them, getting a job, education is meant for getting a job. But to understand that education is for life and education is not for a job is another Herculean task which needs to be understood. Like China, in India too, we have tiger mothers who are after their children with a stick, where the school's capacity is checked by what the child has learned through rote and spit out and got marks for it. So again, a point where, we need to think how we're going to resolve this. If we connection is lost. Yeah, so if we start implementing it, we jump into the field without being sufficiently prepared, it's going to backfire. So what do we do about that? Connection gets lost.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So thank you, Divjot, for the thought-provoking, questions. How far it is going to help us? This is for, I would like to add on a points here. There are some important timelines given by the government to implement this national education policy. It clearly states that NEP will not be implemented immediately. The government has set up a target of 2040, in the year 2040, to implement the entire NEP policy, taking all the precautions well in advance. The government would till then slowly implement the policy key points one by one, while garnering sufficient funds to maintain the NEP proposal. Say, for example, the evaluation pattern has been changed, almost at the verge of a change. The types of questions like case study, activity-based questions, cognitive skill-based questions. Question pattern is almost getting changed. The NEP actually provides a broad area of directives, and it is not compulsory to be followed. These are all directives for educationists to help the next generation. The reforms that are proposed can only come in place when they are collaboratively by the central government and the state government together, work together, and with that consensus of both the central and the state governments, it is going to be implemented. It is not going to be implemented in 2022. Yes, as members raised the application.
The first phase of it, where we are going to have a pilot program with a few schools. The first very little part of it for class 3, 5, and 8, that examination pattern that they're talking of, that is going to be there by April 22 as a pilot project. Is going to be there in few schools.
Yeah.
All of it is not happening in here, obviously.
Okay, yeah. It also envisages to implement the success of the NEP educational reforms by setting up subject-wise committees with members from relevant ministries at both central and state governments to discuss the implementation plan for each area of the NEP policy. And after this planning for NEP is done, there would be a yearly joint review of the progress made by made in each aspect of the NEP policy. So these are the important points mentioned by the mentioned in the new education policy. Anyway, thanks to all the panelists for their thoughts and throwing lights on the matter on new education policy. And it is rightly said, education is a passport to the future for tomorrow, because tomorrow belongs to those who prepare it for it today. So for 2040, if we prepare today, it is going to be in the right direction, educational direction for the benefit of the students. Okay, with that, may I keep the floor open for your questions and queries? Yes, so that all the expert panelists would be responding to it. Yes, Abhishek sir.
Yes, actually, sir, we have some questions, but due to the time constraint, actually only 4 minutes left. We will mail the questions. Actually, major topics has been covered by the all the panelists. There is some
Okay.
questions regarding the AI and the technological transformation that we
Very
will
good.
mail the questions to you. And I would like to request all my audience to please follow our speakers on their social handle as well. If you have any other query to be asked personally on their social handles, you can directly follow them. You can ping them. If a question is relevant, our speaker will get back to you. Otherwise, you can mail us at education@digitallearning.in. So by this, I would like to request Deepak to give the small token of appreciation from our World Education Summit side. This is a speaker certificate presented to Dr. Sebastian, PG, Principal, Christ Academy CBSE School, Bengaluru. Thank you, Sebastian,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you very much for the wonderful moderation and wonderful insight regarding the topic.
Thank
Miss
you, sir.
Punam Singhal, Principal, the Paras World School, Gurugram. Thank you, Punam ma'am. Thank you very much for giving your time. Speaker certificate is presented to Mr. Dan Curry, Director and Principal, Vega School, Gurugram. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much for coming to a World Education Summit and sharing your wonderful insights. Miss Jyoti Chatterjee, Principal, Chitrakoota School, Bengaluru. Thank you, Jyoti ma'am. Thank you very much for giving your time to us. It's a wonderful session, and the speaker's certificate is presented to Ms. Divjot Kaur, Principal, GD Goenka Public School, Jhajjar. Thank you, Divjot ma'am. Thank you very much for giving your precious time to us. It's always be pleasure to have you on World Education Summit. So by this, we will wrap up our first panel discussion, that is the National Education Policy. And if you have any other questions, please mail to us and we will send this mail to our speakers. If they get revert on that, we will send your answers back to you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Punam ma'am. Thank you, Divjot
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you, Jyoti ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you,
Sebastian.
sir. Thank you very much. Let me conclude by quoting Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The best
Yes.
brains of the nation may be found on the last benches of the classroom. So there is a great responsibility lying on the shoulders of the teachers as we celebrated Teachers' Day 3 days ago. So wish you all the very best to mold the new generation ahead. Thank you very much for this golden opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Sabhi
you.
ko namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.